All right, so let's talk about variables on both sides. Sometimes we end up with equations with variables on both sides. The main goal, though, is still the same. Try to get that variable isolated all by itself onto one side. So what we're going to do is we're going to use those properties of equalities in order to do that. And then we're going to also write and solve equations with variables on both sides. So let's go ahead and get right on into it. If you notice on question number one, or problem number one, we have 6n minus 1 is equal to 4n minus 5. Well, we got variables on both sides, so we need to get it onto one side. And in order to do that, we can't just take it and move it. We've got to do inverse operations. So looking at the two variables, on the left side I see I have 6n, on the right side I see I have 4n. It doesn't matter which one I get rid of. It's just that I got to get rid of one of them. So I think on the first one, what I'm going to do is 6n would actually be larger than 4n. So we'll do that one first. So the inverse of what I need to add to 6n to get 0 is negative 6n. So that's going to be my strategy. I'm going to subtract 6n from both sides. When I do that, my 6n's cancel out on the left-hand side, leaving me with just negative 1. 4n minus 6n, well, that'll give me negative 2n. And didn't do anything with the minus 5, so I'm just going to bring it straight on down. Now I have myself a two-step equation. So my strategy is going to be add 5 to both sides, then divide both sides by negative 2. So add 5 to both sides. Negative 1 plus positive 5 gives me 4 equals negative 2n. Then divide both sides by negative 2. My negative 2's cancel out on the side with my variable, leaving me with just n is equal to, now 4 divided by negative 2 gives me negative 2. Okay, now if I go back and I check it, well, if I put 6 times negative 2 in for n, 6 times negative 2 would give me negative 12, minus 1, that would give me negative 13 on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, 4 times negative 2 would give me negative 8, minus 5, that would also give me negative 13. So since negative 13 does indeed equal negative 13, the answer is perfect. All right, let's move on over to the other side. So we got 10 minus 3x is equal to negative 5 plus 2x. This time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the smaller of the two. So looking closely at this, on the left side, I have negative 3x, and on the right side, I have positive 2x. Well, the negative number is smaller than the positive number, so that's the one that I'm going to move. So what do I need to add to negative 3x to get 0? Well, positive 3x. So I'm going to add positive 3x to both sides, but whatever I do to one side, of course, I have to do to the other side. My 3x's cancel out, leaving me with just 10 on the left. Negative 5 plus 5x. Now, I see that I'm going to add 5 to both sides because I have, since my negative 5 is out in front of my variable, I'm not really concerned about whether we're adding or subtracting. I'm looking at, is it positive 5 or negative 5? Since it's negative, I need to add positive 5 to get rid of it. But of course, whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. My 5's cancel out, leaves me with 15 is equal to 5x. Divide both sides by 5. So my 5's cancel out, leaves me with x is equal to 3. Okay, if I go plug that back in, 10 minus 3 times 3, well, 3 times 3 is 9. 10 minus 9 is 1. Negative 5 plus 2 times 3, well, 2 times 3 is 6. Negative 5 plus 6 is 1. We're good. I can circle my answer with confidence. Okay, so let's kind of look back and see what is the difference of moving the bigger n and the smaller n. Well, one of the things you'll notice right here, I moved the bigger n, but I ended up with a negative coefficient. Well, if I move the smaller n, I end up with a positive coefficient. I'm more likely to end up with a positive coefficient. So by moving the smaller one, you're less likely to have to deal with negatives. So my recommendation would be to move the smaller of the two. But you know what? At the end of the day, it's your choice. You get to choose. All right, so let's move on down to number 3. In 3, we have 2/3 x minus 1 is equal to 9 minus 1/6 x. So I'm going to use, excuse me, I'm so tired. All right, I'm going to use that strategy of moving the smaller value. So that means I'm going to add 1/6 x to both sides. So that cancels out my 1/6 x on the right and leaves me with just 9. Now, in order to add these two algebraic terms, I'm going to have to get common denominators. So that means the top fraction, I need to multiply both the numerator and denominator by 4, which gives me 4/6. 4/6 plus 1/6 gives me 5/6 x. Bring down the minus 1. All right, so now my strategy is going to be add 1 to both sides, and then we'll talk about that other second strategy in just a second. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides. That gives me 5, 6, x is equal to 10. Now I could do one of two things. Since 5, 6 is being multiplied to x, I could divide both sides by 5, 6. Or I could multiply by the reciprocal, which I think that's what I'm going to do because that's the type of person I am. I like to multiply by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal. Cancels out my 5, 6, or my coefficient. In other words, it reduces my coefficient all the way down to 1 and leaves me with just x. Now, if I take 10 times 60, that gives, or 10 times 6, that gives me 60, and 60 divided by 5 gives me 12. Another way I could do it is just cross simplify. 5 goes into 10 twice. 5 goes into 5 once. 2 times 6 gives me 12. Okay? All right. If you want to pause the video and do number 4 on your own, you're welcome to do that. But I'm going to just go ahead and walk through it. And I think I'm going to turn to blue. I like blue. All right. So let's see. I want to move the smaller of the two. So actually the smaller of the two would be the 2/5 x. So I'm going to subtract 2/5 x from both sides. Okay, that leaves me with nothing but -3 on the right. I'm going to have to get common denominator. I know that looks like a 3, but that's a 5. So let's see, this would give me 10/15, and this would give me, multiplied by, so -6/15. 10 minus 6 gives me 4/15 x plus 5. Subtract 5 from both sides. 4/15 x is equal to -8. Then I love that strategy of multiplying by the reciprocal, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to multiply by 15/4. Of course, whatever I do one side, I'm going to do to the other side. Cancels out my coefficient, leaving me with just a coefficient of 1, so in other words, just x. And what I could do, this is 4 right here. What I could do is I can multiply 8 times 15 and then divide it by 4, or I can cross simplify and actually be very much aware that is a negative 8. So let me make sure I add that. All right, so negative 8 divided by 4, well, that gives me negative 2. 4 divided by 4 gives me 1. So negative 2 times 15 would give me negative 30. Okay, so let me go back and check that. So 2/3 times negative 30, well, that would give me negative 20 plus 5. That would give me negative 15. So 2/5 times negative 30, so that would give me negative 12 minus 3. That gives me negative 15. Yay, we're good.